form attributes, form element and attributes, input element and how to deal with its attributes. So next important, after understanding about various attributes of forms input element, we need to learn about how to deal with the other controls in the form, means other form elements, how to deal with them. So the other form elements and how to use them. Yesterday we discussed only this option of a pattern. How do we deal with the patterns? This is the pattern element we have. Yeah. So we learned about the pattern. Now, what are the other options we need to understand? Let's see. So in HTML forms, we need to deal with other elements like radio buttons. We need to deal with radio buttons. Radio buttons, checkbox, list box, and other options we need to handle. Technically, radio buttons, how to deal with them. Actually, what is the main purpose of a radio button is how the radio buttons actually work. Generally, radio button, technically radio button enables the user to select one or multiple option, enable the user to select one or multiple options. When we say it enables the user to select one or multiple options, immediately some people don't know, and they say that, sir, radio button only one option. So actually the main behavior of radio is it allows selection. You can allow one option or you can allow multiple options. We can see that how the radios work actually, technically. That means, for example, suppose we are designing radios.html. Create a page. So doc type HTML head, and we have radios. In the body, I am designing a simple field set with a legend saying that choose gender. And below this, we need radio button. Input type is equal to radio. This gets a radio button. Here we have male. Input type is equal to radio, another one. And this is also defined with female. Okay. We have two radio on the page. Usually what happens is radios are defined in this way. Let's run this and see how it works. Let's open in the browser and see. So this is a simple radio button. I'm selecting this, and let's see how it works actually. So these are two radio buttons, gender, male and female. And you can see I can select male and I can select female also. Both are working. Generally, if anyone says that radios are used for selecting only one option, that's not actually its behavior. You can select one or more than one also. That is not the actual behavior. Now, what is problem here is, technically what is the problem with radio is, so when we are working with radio, the problem with radio is, so radio button once checked, it cannot be unchecked. Radio button once checked, it cannot be unchecked. So checked means selected, you cannot deselect it. So that is the problem with the radio button. You can see I want to deselect female, it is not deselecting, it's not working. I want to deselect male, it is not working. So that means once it is selected, you cannot deselect it. That is the problem with radio buttons. So how to manage them? Radio buttons are managed by implementing mutex mechanism. So mutex means mutual exclusion. It is mutual exclusion by using mutex mechanism, mutual exclusion mechanism. That means actually, what is this mutex mechanism? You generally will come across with this mutex mechanism while learning about a concept called multi-threading. We have a concept multi-threading. While learning about multi-threading, you will come across with this mutex mechanism, this mutex option actually. So technically, what is mutex? I will show you. Generally, what happens is we have a process. That means this is the process. We have process and we have memory. So in the memory, we have two tasks in the memory, like task 1 and task 2. Two tasks are in the memory. Now, first task is sent into the memory. That means a task is sent into the memory. Once this task is sent into the memory, it cannot come out sent into the process from the memory. It is sent to process. It cannot come out of this process. It always stay in the process. To send it out the process, outside the process, you have to restart the process. That means in our example, These two are sent into process. You can see second task also sent into process. But problem is they cannot come out of that process. So they are unable to come out of the process. To bring them out of the process, we have to restart the process. This process we have to restart. That means I have to restart the page, refresh the page. Then they will be deselected. Once you selected, you cannot deselect it. You cannot deselect. Radios can select more than one option also. So that is not a problem for radio actually. But the problem is they cannot be deselected. Then what we do is, that is the issue. What we do is, radio buttons are managed by implementing mutex mechanism. Mutex mechanism is nothing but both radios are given with same name. So they run on a single thread. Or you can simply say that they run on same thread. Due to that, what happens is process will allow only one thread. So one task, or you can say, so one task at the same time. Process will allow only one task at the same time. So both radios are given with the same name. That means they will have the same name. They run on same thread. Then process will allow only one task at the same time. That means now what will happen is, you can see here currently it is like this. Generally what we do is, we make these two tasks to run on a single thread. We will design a single thread. On one thread, these two tasks are tied up. Now process, what it will do is, from a thread, it will allow only one task at a time. Then what happens if I send second task? Remember, the task one will not come out by itself. When you push the second task, then automatically, so the task one comes out. When you send task one into it, then automatically task two comes out. That means out of the thread, from a thread, it will allow only one task at a time. This is mutex mechanism, mutual exclusion. How do we define mutex mechanism? So we have to give a same name for both radios. This radio is having a name called gender. So this radio is also having the same name called gender. If both are having the same name, so radios both are having the same name, then you can see, I refresh this and you can see now, I selected male, it's okay. I try to deselect male, it's not working. Now select female, it will deselect male. By seeing this, many people have given a wrong definition for this. They will simply say that radio buttons are used for selecting one option. If I don't give a common name, if I give different name, suppose observe, this is gender, and this is suppose gender 1, different name. If I give a different name, you can see that both are independent. So then always when you say I can select only one option with radio, whoever says that, we can prove them wrong. Then how do we define this? So we have to tell that Radios are used for exhibiting mutex mechanism. So that means radios are used for mandatory choice. Radios are used for mandatory choice, and only one only one option only one option user must able to choose, and only one option user must able to choose. Means mandatory choice and only one option user must able to choose. If you have this kind of situation, then we can use radios. How you can make mandatory choice? So you can make mandatory choice by using checked property checked property by using checked property. You can you can you can make the choice mandatory. By using the checked property, we can use the mandatory. By using checked property, we can do that mandatory. That means now what we do is here. So as of now, in the design, you can see, so both are defined with same name and no one is selected. How you can make mandatory? I will make one option checked here. I will make one option checked here. If I make one option checked every time, by default, the first option is checked. You try to deselect, it's not working. That means it is mandatory that one option will be selected. You can switch between options. I selected female, it will deselect the male. I selected male, it will deselect the female. But you cannot deselect both. So you can see male cannot be deselected. At least one will be there in the process. Even when you refresh, what will happen? When you reload, the male option will be selected. That means when you have to provide a mandatory choice, that means user must choose one. But which one he will switch between? So he can switch between the selection. But only one he must choose. Then we have to design radio like this. If anyone asks like, can I use radio for selecting more than one also? You can, no problem. You can use radios for selecting more than one option also. But the problem is, we cannot deselect them. To manage deselecting, we have to use this mechanism. This is mutex mechanism. So how do we define radios? Syntactically, so the radios are defined. Input type is equal to radio. Radio will have a name. Radio can have a value. And radio will have some text outside. Outside we give the text. So the important property, one more property for the attribute for the radio is checked. Checked. Checked indicates whether it is selected or not. Now if we give checked for both, so already we saw previously, only one will work. And you can see this time last one is working. You saw autofocus. Autofocus works for the first one. And here it will work only for the last one. You cannot give both checked. Only one checked. And one more important is, Generally, when we have form, okay, in the form we have this, and we will have a button, submit. Generally, in interviews, one question asked is what a radio button submits if there is no value mentioned. Currently, radios are not mentioned with value. So here, male and female are not, male and female are not values actually. They are just text. What radios will submit if you are not mentioning any value? The answer is radios by default submit on or off. That means you see, I selected male and submit. You can see it says gender on. You select female and submit. It says gender is on. That means by default, if you are submitting a radio without any value, by default it submits on. That means radio submits on as value if value is not defined. So we have to define a value for radio. So I'm using value. So this is male and value for this is female. Now you can see that. So when I refresh, I click submit, then it says gender male is submitted. I selected female, then gender female is submitted. After submitting, it is loading the page again. That's the reason it shows male after submitting female. Because after post, it come back to the same page. That is the reason. It is submitting male. It is submitting female. So that female is submitted. So you have to define a value. We need to configure a value. So the important properties that we use with radio is one is name, another value, and checked. These are the important attributes we have to use. So what is the purpose of name and value? Already we know. Only additional option is checked. So by using checked property, you can make the choice mandatory. That means what checked will do? Checked will select the radio. Checked will select the radio. So this is the basic point about radio. How do we work with the radios? By seeing its behavior. Now many people say that radio buttons are used for selecting one option. They think like that, but actually radio buttons are used for multiple also. If you give different names, they will be used for multiple. But always use radios like this. That means by designing in such a way that they can exhibit mutex mechanism. They can exhibit mutex mechanism. Let's see another option how to handle that. So that means other options other than this. Now example for this. So this is an example for radio. This is an example for radio, how we are defining the radio. This submit button is temporary, just to understand, right? Later, we will learn about buttons also. But this is the basic about how to deal with these options. That means radios, a simple example of radios. Okay, this is simple example of radios. So here, input type is radio. Its value is male or female. And gender is the name. If you give a common name, then out of all, only one will be selected. That is the option. So by default, it submits on as value. if value is not defined. So we have to define a value. Checked is a Boolean property. It's true or false, like, right? That is radius. Now the same option, so we have for another important is a checkbox. Same like radio, we have checkbox. Checkbox. What is the purpose of checkbox? The main purpose of checkbox is, advantage of the checkbox is, checkbox allows the user to check and uncheck the option. Uncheck the option. Checkbox allows the user to check and uncheck the option. Check and uncheck the option. So that is the intention of checkbox. It allows to check and uncheck the option. So you can use to select one or multiple options. So it is same like radio, but the point is it allows you to select one or multiple. So you can define checked property to select any option. You can define checked property to select any option. And you can select multiple options also. Same like radius. So the properties are similar. That means how do we define the checkbox? Syntactically, to define the checkbox, we have input type is equal to checkbox, and name is equal to some name, value is equal to some value, and checked if necessary, and you can give some text. So checkbox, you can see in various occasions we can use that. Radios, this is radio. Okay, let's add another for checkbox .html. Just simply roughly I'm creating separate doc type HTML head and title and checkbox. I'm defining in the body section here the option like form and field set and legend. Here I define like select courses, something like this. And here we have input type is equal to checkbox. So, and here I'm defining some JavaScript HTML. Okay. Input type is equal to checkbox. So that is CSS. So, and input type is equal to checkbox and some JavaScript. And you can see the checkboxes have the ability. So we have checkbox.html. The checkboxes have the ability to check, and you can uncheck that option. You don't need to exhibit mutex. Radius cannot do that. That is the reason radius requires the option to check and uncheck mutex mechanism. But you can check and uncheck. You can use for one or multiple. Use one or multiple. Actually, checkboxes also submit on off. That means if you are not defining anything, suppose you have a button submit, and this checkboxes, I click here and submit. They have to submit on. For that we need a name. I will use name. And this is course. And I'm using a name as course. For all of them, giving same name is good. But this time it will not work as mutex because checkbox don't have that behavior. Then why you are giving same name? so that if all are stored with the same name, then it is easy to collect them. We can easily collect them. If they are stored with different names, then it is difficult to collect them, but not impossible. You can do that. So initially, I give a name and I selected HTML and JavaScript and submit. You can see it submits on. That means by default, the checkbox also submits. Checkbox also submits on. That means checkbox submits on as value. Submits on as value. Checkbox by default submits on as value. On as value. If value is not defined. If value is not defined. So that means we are not defining the value. So if value is not defined. So to do that, we need to just give this value for that. That means course value is equal to HTML. Then this course value is CSS. And this course value is JavaScript. That is the option. Now once we refresh, you can see now. This time I selected HTML, JavaScript. It submits those values. Course is HTML, course is JavaScript. And course is CSS. It can submit only that. Because I submitted only one value. It is submitting only that particular value. So it allows you to submit more than one. Technically, this is submitting of values. You can give different names also. But as per the standards, if I give a common name, then it is easy to collect that name and use for the reference later. Later, logically, we will see that in JavaScript and all how to handle them. But this is the basic. By default, if I want anyone to select, I can use checked. You can use checked for more than one. So because it allows multiple, then they are selected by default. You can use checked for more than one. They allow to choose by default. So basically, the properties are used in this way. So you can use a checkbox to select one or select multiple. So that you can manage by using this behavior, by configuring the behavior in this way. So radios and checkboxes, the behavior is radio will allow to select one or multiple. Checkbox also will allow to choose one or multiple. But radios checked cannot uncheck. For that, we need to define mutex. But checkbox checked can be unchecked. And how to use the values, that is same. How we can configure and use the value. So this is an example for checkbox. I will paste that example here. This is for checkbox. So radios and checkboxes. And checkbox is defined by using input type as checkbox. Radios are defined by using input type as radio. Input type as radio, right? So that is radio and checkbox. But here one problem is there with the radio and checkboxes. The problem with radio and checkboxes is if there are many options and user has to choose one, radios will occupy more space on the screen. Suppose I have 10 cities. Out of 10 cities, user should choose only one city. Then we can use radio, but radio is very complex because so you have three check boxes side by side or one below another. They occupy more screen on page. Suppose there are 20 options, then you can see that entire screen is messy with all those options. So much messy with all those options. That is the reason one important point here is we need to understand is we can manage that. We can manage that by using the other selection options. If there are many choices to choose, then we can use other selection options like a drop down. We can use a drop down list. A drop down list is, so in a drop down list can display a combo box. So it can display a combo box. Actually, it can display a combo box. That is the reason drop down is also called as combo box. Actually, a drop down list can display a combo box. So it comprises of a so displayed on the click of drop down menu. So on displayed on click of drop down menu. It comprises of collection of options displayed on click of drop down menu. So it allows to save screen space, and user can choose any one option from a group of choices. It allows to save screen space, and user can choose any one option from group of choices. So if there are many options to display and user have to choose only one out of all, then you can use a drop down. That means if there are many options to display and user have to choose only one option, then present by using drop down list. That is the key point. You have to present by using drop down list, and for that we need the tags used for drop down list are, what are the tags used for drop down list? For drop down list we need these tags. What are the tags for designing a drop down list? To design a drop down list, the tags that we need, so one is tag and description. Okay. Now what is the option? What is the tag you need, and how do we handle it? Generally, three important tags are used for dealing with drop down list. One, we have a select. It is a container for collection. It is a container for collection of options. So option option, it defines an item. It defines an item in drop-down list. And OPT group. So it specifies an option group. So which is used to group options, into a category. That is OPT group. So these are the attributes. These are the important tags used for designing a drop-down. We have select, we have option, and we have OPT group. So first, let's see how to design them. So I'm creating another file, dropdown.html. Let's create a dropdown here. Doc type HTML head and title. So just keep it as dropdown. And in the body, a form, and here field set with legend. And I'm giving select your city. And below this, I will use a select. You can see that this select will give, when I open this select, you can see the select can give a simple drop down, but it is empty. Nothing is inside it. So to define items into it, so this select contains an OPT group, option group. You can categorize. In this option group, it is having a label. Option group is having a label as some north. Okay, another OPT group, option group. This is having a label like south. So in this option group, we have an option. This option is Delhi. And we have an option. This is Mumbai. In the south, we have an option. We have Hyderabad. And we have an option, some Chennai. And you can see that what this OPT group, it is used to categorize your options. And you can see now, so select your city. You can see here, I have groups now. So north is a group, in that you have these two. South is a group, in that we have these two. You cannot choose those north, south. They are not options. They are just labels. And I am selecting Mumbai, or I am selecting Hyderabad, or I am selecting Chennai. You can choose that options here. So this is option group actually. How you can configure the option group. So the point is, under one option group, you can keep some options. That is the basic syntax, how we can design an option with option group. So that is general syntax, how we can define. This is one syntax to configure those options and option groups. So this is the select, and select is defining those options here. So it is defining those options. Now important is, so these options, when we are configuring these options, so we have some properties for every option. We have properties for every option. So that means option attributes. Every option have some important attributes. What are the attributes for option? When you define option, what are the attributes for option? So let's see. Option have attributes. And what are the attributes for option? So I keep an attribute and description here, right? So insert to right or left. Okay. So we have an attribute, and it's a type and a description. So technically, so what is this attribute, type, and descriptions here is, that means attribute, its data type, and its description. Okay, let's see what they are. Options have attribute like option will have a value. Actually, it is text. Type is text. That means it specifies. Generally, we call data type as string. Okay. It specifies the value to submit. It specifies the value to submit. We have a text. It is also string type. It specifies the value. It specifies the caption to display as text. Caption to display as text. And we have selected. So selected is also selected is a boolean actually. Means true or false. Selected is a boolean, true or false. Technically, what is the purpose of selected is it is a boolean value. The purpose of that is nothing but technically it is used to select the option automatically on page load. So that means its purpose is to select the option automatically on page load. That is selected. Another we have disabled. Disabled also boolean only. True or false. What disabled will do is it will not allow to select the option. That means the option is displayed in the list, but you cannot select that option. And that is what actually disabled is. Disabled. These are the option related attributes. How we define the attributes for option, configured option related attributes. So how do we write those attributes? Actually, option attributes are written like this. Option will have a value. Option will have selected. Option will have disabled. Option text will be here. Not inside. Text is defined here. While dynamically using it, we use as a text property is important. But generally we write text here. That means, see here, when you are submitting this form, select is having a name as a city. Some list, then I give as LST cities. Okay. Now important is when you submit, actually it is submitting the text. You can observe that. I select Mumbai and I keep a submit button here. So button submit. And when I click on Mumbai and submit, it submits LST cities Mumbai. It submits it. LST cities Mumbai. It is submitting that. Technically, it is submitting it. Now, important is I don't want to submit what is displayed here. Sometimes you see the shopping sites and all, you select the city, then immediately it says that according to your current location, your PIN code is this, and it is not deliverable to your PIN code. Actually, you are selecting city, but the city PIN code must be submitted. Then we use a value. Value will be some different value. That means what you see is Delhi. But when you submit Delhi, it will not submit Delhi text. It will submit this value. You can submit same Delhi. That means you can write here Delhi. That means what you see and what you submit both are same. But every time it will not be like that. Sometimes we submit a different value than what user can see actually, because in the background we need that value. Suppose for defining some value, Mumbai. So some Mumbai, and that's some code, some value for Hyderabad. And here I defined some value for Hyderabad. And I'm using value here. Let's see here, I'm using Chennai only, string. Then observe carefully what happens now. When user selects Mumbai and submit, it will submit its PIN code. What you see is different. Hyderabad, it submits its PIN code. And you select Chennai, it submits its Chennai only. Because what you given as value, it is submitted. So sometimes we can submit the same, sometimes it can be different. It depends on our requirement. Another option is, whenever I open, you can see Delhi is selected. I want Hyderabad selected. Then for Hyderabad, you can give option selected. And if I say selected, then you can see that by default, Hyderabad is selected. So I'm choosing something else. I refresh the page. By default, Hyderabad will be selected. You can make only one option selected. You cannot define multiple. Selected indicates by default it is selected. I want Mumbai disabled. When it's disabled, you see that in the list it is present, but we cannot select Mumbai now. It is present, but you cannot select it. You cannot choose it. That you can manage by using this select. So this is one simple example of how do we use the options of drop down. How we can use the options of drop down. You have value, we have text, we have selected, and we have disabled. This is an example for that. How we can use the drop down options also. So the value, the text, disabled, and selected. More than one can be disabled, but more than one cannot be selected. That is how we can use a drop-down list. The same thing you can use for a list box also. Drop-down list and the list box, both are same actually. Drop-down list and list box, both are same. So list box is similar to drop-down, but allows to select more than one option, multiple options. So you have to define size and multiple attributes for select element. List box is also used for same options. That means just only one simple. Generally, when you are using list box, so here you just give multiple as a property. That's it. You can see it is converted into a list box now. User can scroll and user can select. User can select multiple. I selected the first one. I selected control key. With control key, I can select the second one. Both are selected. I can select the third one. I can use shift key, control key, or I can drag the selection, submit. It submits all of them that you have selected. It has the ability to submit all of them that you have selected. It is multiple. So if there are many options, then drop down, instead of drop down, you can give a select. User can choose more than one. You can adjust the size. You can give size as 3. That means it will set the size to 3. Size as 2. Then it will set the size. Size means height. So you can reduce the size here. Scroll bar depends on size. If I say size as 8, then you can see the size is like this. Scroll bar is not there. Scroll bar comes when depending on the size, what size you have defined. Based on that, the scroll bar will come. So everything's same. Only one point is you add multiple and size. Then it will be a list box. It will be a list box. What is the specialty of list box? Is it allows you to select multiple options. Multiple options. So all options are similar. Just we need to add these 2 attributes additionally for them. That means we need to configure multiple and you need to configure the size. So it makes it converts automatically the drop down into list box. If you don't give multiple or size, and automatically it is converted into a drop down list now. If I give size, then it is converted into list box, but it will not allow to select more than one. Only one is selected. Then you define multiple, then it allows to select more than one. Allows to select more than one. You can choose more than one. It submits those values. That is what basically how we can define a drop-down list. So we have reduce, we have checkbox, we have drop-down list and list box. Now 2-3 more important controls are there that we will see tomorrow, right? Then tomorrow we can finish working with forms. And what I will do is, up to tomorrow's concept, I will give you some exercises to you now. Then you have to do those by yourself and submit to me. What exercises I will post in the classroom, right? You can get updated from there, right? And I will help you if you are facing any problems in solving those exercise designs, right? But initially, these are all the basics of form. Tomorrow we will continue with this and finish the forms, and we will start designing some examples up to that concept we have learned, okay? Then we can learn some advanced of HTML and go to CSS now, how to work with styles, right? Tomorrow we'll continue.